G'day, awesome people. Joined. Hey, come up and say g'day to everyone. He's run off. Alright, so let's do this podcast. G'day, trendsetters. Welcome to episode 176 of the Train Smooth podcast. My name is Tim Egg. And as always, if you have any questions you'd like to submit to the show, jump on through to the website, trainsmooth.com. Fill in the information on the front page and shoot it through. I get satisfied. So I've still got a bit of a backlog I'm trying to get through here. But if it's urgent, put on the subject saying urgent so I can answer it straight away. I'll answer it via email straight away to you. Even if you think, is it urgent? Is it not urgent? It's probably not urgent, but I really want to know now. Just put it on there, just so I know. So today's question comes from Hamish. Hi Tim. What are your thoughts on time-restricted dieting? I think I heard something on the internet, in brackets, not a reliable source I know, it depends where you're looking, that if you drop your diet intake to within a 9 to 12 period, you will achieve endurance gains. What are your thoughts? So on time-restricted dieting, so I think what you're meaning is intermediate fasting. So I was just watching not that long ago on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was talking to someone who does something similar to eating between 9 to 12, like you say, but I think he was 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day or something crazy. I think that's BS with endurance gains if you eat between those. Really, if you want to make endurance gains, you got to go out the door and just keep going. That will give you endurance gains. Diet really doesn't come into play when it comes to, we're talking endurance gains. Diet comes into many other aspects, recovery and what sort of set training sessions you're going to be doing, but actually endurance gains, I think my bullshit radar is going off its tree on that bit there. As for intermediate dieting, I'm a big fan of intermediate dieting, but restricting your diet between like 9 o'clock in the morning until 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not a big fan of that at all. And there's a few things. You become a bit antisocial at your dinner table with the family. You're going to sit there while your kids are eating pork chops and big plate of veggies and all sorts of good stuff, and you're looking there, so how was your day today? Oh, very nice. God, you'd be a tougher man than me. And then especially when they've got leftovers as well, and all of a sudden you think, oh, geez, don't throw that out. And you think to yourself, I could be eating over the sink all their leftovers. So, but trying to answer your question, intermediate fasting, say, let's say your last meal, you have 12-hour intermediate fasting for every day, for instance. So you'll finish eating at 7 o'clock at night, and you won't start eating till 7 in the morning. That's 12 hours. You can do 16 hours. Anything shorter than that, I don't know. I don't like the sound of that, especially for endurance work. I don't know what you're training for instance, but I'd be a bit wary. My old man, my dad, he went on this massive diet. He was severely overweight. He has been my whole life, and he's decided he's going to do the good old-fashioned calorie counting, and his goal was to lose 40 kilos. And in I think 300 days or something, or just under to 300 days, he ended up losing 45 kilos, I think it was. But he did calorie counting, and he's got a website called retiredandfat.com. I think that's what it is, retiredandfat.com. And every single day he updates his website on every single thing he eats, including how many calories on each thing he has. And about 6 months into it, he started plateauing. And I said to him, why don't you start fasting? And he did. God, that sounds horrible. I go, if I was you, I would look at doing 24-hour fastings, one day a week. And the way you can do it is not just wake up and you go, I'm not going to eat today, because that's ridiculous. That's too hard. So what we suggested is, you wake up, you have your breakfast, you have your lunch. you stop eating at lunchtime, and then you wake up the next day. You know, you finish the rest of the day with no food. You drink fluids. The very next day, you wake up, you do your everyday thingamajigs, whatever you do, and then your first meal of the day will be at lunchtime. So it's not that hard. So it's only half a day one day, half a day the next. You're sleeping through most of it. So, and then all of a sudden the weight started not piling off, just melting off him. So that worked really, really well. He all of a sudden he just went really well. So if you so that's an option. But for gains, you also want to look at if you're doing more like anaerobic work into your program. You're going to need carbs for that. I am a big fan of depleted runs too. I'm just trying to answer your question by not answering your question. Like with depleted runs. So when you're talking about doing the back end of an Ironman, you're doing Ultraman, you're doing ultra marathons, for instance. You really, burning more fat is that it's a great source, for instance. So one depends. You start off small, but one sessions I love doing is wake up and go running, for instance, relatively moderate effort. But one thing I really like is depleted long runs. So let's say you're going out for a 2-hour run. So you wake up, you have a drink of water or whatever, and you go out and run, and you have some carbs, have some lollies or gels with you just in case. It's best to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's my motto. So you just go out, you start running, and you run for 2 hours or whatever your long run is, 20 miles, and then your first bit of meal for the day is when you get home. It sucks. It's a crummy session to do. I give it, if I do it to athletes, it's generally once a fortnight because it's mentally taxing. But I tell you what, they thank me in that last 21 k's of a Ironman. It's really good. So, I keep reading back your question here, 9 to 12. I just don't like the sound of that. It depends what training you're doing too. If you're doing some more high intensity training, I'm going to absolutely say no for that. I don't like it, man. That's just me. I'm not a big expert into this side of things too. I'm a big carb man. I like my carbs, and you also, for instance, one thing I will say is, especially what sort of training you're doing. You go to these training, like you go to a race, and especially if it becomes quite hilly. People back off that effort because they don't want to burn those matches. But if you do that in training, like if you're going into some high intensity work into training and then you back it right off and then go back into that intensity. So when you come to a race, it's okay if you go into the red for going up a hill because in training you've been able to recover quite quickly from these things. So that I think if you do this sort of diet from 9 to 12, I think you will sacrifice high-end training and you're just going to lose performance gains. And I know you're after about endurance gains. But in reality, I think you'll lose performance gains, and that's what you probably should be aiming for. But good luck with it. Let us know how you get on anyway, Hamish. All the best. If you guys have any other questions, shoot me through an email, tim@trainsmooth.com. Till tomorrow. Hooroo. Hooroo.